Hi BookTube. So I wanted to sit down and talk about how my reading went in February. I have my notebook where I've kept notes, but I also have charts and pie charts and bar graphs and all that to share with you because, as I mentioned in my January wrap up, I have started using StoryGraph for this year just to toy around with it and see what I think of it before I commit to using it. Because I've been using Goodreads, but I've heard good things about StoryGraph, so like why not give it a try? And so I wanted to use it because it's like gonna give me the data I have to like go hunting for myself. So for the month of February, I participated in a couple of reading events. I failed on two of them, kind of sort of. So the Retro Romance Readathon, where you want to read a book 2006 or earlier, so 20 years ago or earlier, and I don't know how that's considered retro, but I want to say like 1996 makes more sense, but what have you, that's the definition. So I didn't get to that book. My plan was to read a Susan Scarlett book, which is the alter name for the Noel Stratfield name. The author, she wrote, ballet shoes and dancing shoes, that whole children's series. But before that, in the 1940s, during World War II, she was writing adult books for these like heartwarming, uplifting books to get people through those trying times. People with like very little money, like, having to, like during that time where people had to use like alternate food sources to like flour and eggs, all that was like on a shortage. So it was difficult times. And so those books, even now, like, all these years later, are still uplifting and heartwarming, when you need them, and or whether you need them or not, they're nice to read. And so I found her, I heard about this author like a year ago, 2 years ago, so I've been slowly making my way through her books. And so the books written in the 1940s for sure fit the retro romance prompt. So I started the book at the end of the month, so it's going to roll over to March. But so kind of sort of failed on that reading event, but better late than never. And then for the category romance book club, I tried to read the pick. It was what was her name? May something, or her last name ended in May, I can't remember. But my library only had one book by her, and I just didn't care for it. It was too insta-lovey for me. And I feel like sometimes like those older books, especially older romance books, can be like that, and it was just not my cup of tea. So I just dropped it, and I'll resume that reading event for March. Okay, so then for the Wasted Weekend, that's a reading event I did have success on. I read just one book. I was planning to read two, but I read one, and I didn't. Did I take a? Yeah, here we go. I took a screenshot of that one. So I read a Sweet Valley High book number 24, Memories, and it says, "Can Kara make Stephen forget Trisha Martin?" And Stephen is the older brother of the two twins in this series, and his previous girlfriend died, and so he's like getting over that and dealing with grief, and so now he's interested in making friends with other people. He's new people are coming into his life, but he's resisting making friends with them, including a girl that could be potentially like a new girlfriend. And so it's just how teenagers can deal with those difficult situations. So it was like a fun light read. I shouldn't say fun with it dealing with a dark topic, but these are always really light, quick reads. They're like 100 pages or less, something like that. And these are like harping back to when I was in middle school and high school. I read a bunch of these, and so it was fitting for the Wasted Weekend, where you're reading like these trashy books, quote unquote. It's always hard. I always have a hard time defining like the trashy books, because we all have our own definition of it. But for me, like these like ongoing like 100, 200 page, 100 or 200 book long running series, like from the 80s, like I feel like that fits the definition perfectly. Okay, then for the Little House reading event, that was the one I was co-hosting with Elizabeth over at Lizzie Faye Loves Books, where we focus on all things Laura Ingalls Wilder from February 7th through the 10th, and that's the date she was born and the date she died. So it's just fitting to have that 4-day reading event, and I did a whole vlog for that as well. And so for that, I read, let's see, I have prompts. I have prompts. So I read On the Banks of Plum Creek by Laura Ingalls Wilder, and this is about her time in Walnut Grove, where they start with their living in they move from the little house on the prairie. Well, that doesn't really happen, but in the fictionalized version, they moved from Kansas to Walnut Grove, Minnesota. And so they first are living in a dugout before they get to build. They build their own house, and so I've always enjoyed this book. I read this, I think I mentioned before, this was the first book I read from the series when I was a kid, and I found this book right after I myself had for the first time driven, or not myself driving, but I saw the country, the U.S., because I was moving from Virginia to California. So I got to see like the whole landscape of how things were changing for the first time ever. And then when I got to my new school in California, I found this book, and it was just, I always had a fondness for the Little House on the Prairie series because it was just fitting for the right time in my life. As a kid, I feel like like third and fourth grade is the perfect time to pick up this series. But I've always had fondness because I felt, in a way, that I was like in my covered wagon, going across the country, like in the whole like Oregon Trail kind of theme is kind of like what I had experienced like for the first time ever. And so yeah, this is always going to be a favorite of mine. In fact, it was my favorite book for the month of February. Yeah, and again, I always love this cover too. I just found it fascinating where they're living in a hill and she's dancing on top of it. But yes, so I read this one, and then we chose for the group read to read Little House in the Highlands, The Martha Years by Melissa Wiley. And this is the first book in the Martha Years, and this is focusing on Laura Ingalls Wilder's great grandmother, who is in Scotland, and when she was a little girl, and like the family that she's with, and just the folklore and the times in the Scottish landscape is just fascinating. It's very different from this series. Of course, you're looking at, when is this one? 1782 is when Martha was born. So this is probably like 1790. But it focuses so much on the folklore. It even includes different little short stories within here where it's the family members are sharing stories like the fairies and the not the gnomes, but the creatures that are like in the house, like guarding the house, and you have to give them little crumbs and knickknacks and stuff to keep them happy so that they will continue like protecting your house and things like that. So that was very interesting. And me and Elizabeth went in a whole discussion about this on the live show. I think we spent over an hour discussing this, and it was just fascinating and fun to talk with her and talk with everyone that had joined in on the live show. But one thing I thought was interesting is how these two characters are similar, because they both like being outdoors. They both resist at first going to school and learning things because they just want to be outside romping and playing and kind of like tomboyish in a way. So I thought that was interesting to see how these two characters kind of in a way are mirroring each other, which I feel like is for sure something that Melissa Wiley like did on purpose. Okay, so then I participated in the mini deck of TBRathon, and that ran for a week where I was drawing cards and it was giving me a prompt. And I did I do a vlog for that one as well? Yes, I did. Like blanking out. I think I did 2 vlogs, or yeah, I did the Little House vlog, and then I did the mini deck of TBRathon vlog. So I was keeping track of all of the books that I was reading. I kept track of the card I was drawing, and then how many points I got for each card, because you could get 1, 3, or 5 points. Not that it mattered, because the event that takes place in the summer, that's where your points go towards whatever team you decide to go on, the black or the red team. But this is just, just for fun. You're doing it for yourself. And so for that one, I read 7 books, and I had a lot of fun with that. It was like the wild card element of what book am I reading next. It was up to me, but it wasn't exactly up to me. And so it's interesting to see what road I took with that. And I'm for sure looking forward to the June event, because it's just a June or July or August, sometime in the summer. It's just a fun way of mixing up your normal monthly picks or TBR. Okay, so all that. So those are the reading events that I participated in or wanted to participate in. And so then as for my totals, I read a total of 20 books. 6 books were rereads, which I was surprised it was that many. 6 out of 20 is quite a bit. 4 were nonfiction, 16 were fiction. 8 of the books were ones that I owned, and then 12 were digital, mostly ebooks with a couple of audiobooks sprinkled in. And like I mentioned, my favorite of the month was the On the Banks of Plum Creek. Okay, so then I will go through shortly. Let me see here, because I have the charts that Storygraph gave me, And it's like my first time looking through this. So I thought it was interesting how it's for anyone who themselves aren't familiar with Storygraph. I thought I'd like go over it real quickly. Because there's like, when you are tracking your books, there's an option there's a button where you hit, where it will automatically formulate these for you based on, you know, the books that you had added to it. So in February, I read 20 books, and that was a total of 5,807 pages. The average length was 290, and the average time, which I thought was interesting, was 10 days, because there's several books I have like are constantly on the go, whether it's like a short story collection or an essay collection or bigger books, things like that, I will have like sitting for quite a while. And also in this month, because I was participating in so many different reading events, I would do a book for a reading event, and like then the next reading event would happen, because in February they were all like back to back to back. And so sometimes if I didn't finish a book for that reading event, it would just sit there until I got through the other ones. But anyway, yeah, so long story short, I feel like 10 days is quite a long time for me, but just because of how the month played out. But typically I want to say like 3 days or so is my average. Then it gives you, what is this? Pages read. So it tells me each day what I read, but that's not exactly true, because that's just what let me turn the brightness down, that'll help. Because that's just showing you the books I finished each day. Because I know some people like on Goodreads, they'll like update every day or so whenever they have made progress on a book. I did not do that for either one. I never do that. That's too much for me to keep track of. So anyway, that's just the amount of pages I read, and not really, it's just meaningless. Also, it talks about my first, middle, and last book. So this first book is blank because there's no cover, but I finished A Mouse is Miracle Enough by Dan Guthrie. This is a book that I was reading mostly in January, but I happened to finish in February. It's like, again, a book that was just like ongoing forever and a day kind of thing. But this one has really cool illustrations by Betsy Martin, and the cover itself is very interesting with all these like fossilized bones of different animals. But this is about a journalist who is living in Bellingham, Washington, and so this is a collection of his newspaper clippings, or his newspaper writings during his time with the Bellingham. I don't know if it's still active or not, but it's the Bellingham Herald, which is north, about an hour or so north of Seattle. And so some of these drawings are just so, these are different bugs and stuff. So it's covering the animals and the bugs that are in the Bellingham area, but also Eastern Oregon and Eastern Washington. So it gives you a feel of like the animals that are around me. And so this was nice enough. Some of this essay collection, some of the stories were better than others. Some of the drawings are better than others, but yeah, it was just a fun read for me. And it has this like old timey pictures of the author and then the illustrator here. So this was a nice read. And then yeah, the middle book I finished was The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan, and that was an audiobook from me. Can't remember the narrator, but I've read through the series at least once, maybe twice, and I read them with my eyes. So I thought it'd be fun to read them or listen to them, since I know the story well enough. Because sometimes with audiobooks, I have a hard time following the story, especially if there's a bunch of characters. But for this one, because I'm completely familiar with them, I was able to follow along. But this is book 2 in the Wheel of Time series. I don't know how much introduction it needs. For people who read fantasy, they probably are familiar with the series. But it's mainly following 3 people, Matt, Perrin, and Rand, who are in the same village together, and then something happens where they get pulled completely from their small village and are off to see the world, basically, and fight evil and learn about themselves and meet a bunch of other people in all these different cities. And so it's just a fun adventure. So that was the middle book. And then the last book I read is another physical book that I have. And this is Reflections from My Small Town by Susan Rushton. And it's like, and another thing. Yeah, so I think the official title is And Another Thing. So this I found, I think a year ago or so, when I was visiting California. And this is all about Auburn, California, whereas this one is Bellingham, Washington, from a newspaper reporter. This is also a newspaper reporter for, what is the journal or the newspaper called? Does it say? Because I thought it did. Let me see. The Auburn Journal. So she wrote, she had a whole, what is it called? Like where you're regularly writing for a series, like a series well, I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, she gets, it's signed by the author too, from 2015. I didn't go meet the author because I just found this at a local bookstore. But anyway, so I used to live in Auburn, California, and it is one of the old like gold rush California towns that was like booming back in like the 1840s. And it's like in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains, in between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe. So it was fun to revisit a town that I used to live in, and that's why I picked it up. But all that to be said, for such a chunky book, there's only a little sliver that's about the town, and I thought because it's like talk about my small town that I could like revisit in my mind like all the places I used to go to, but it only a little bit focuses on that. All the rest, like it has like all these different themes here. All the rest is like either opinion pieces, and a lot of it, a predominant amount, I was surprised, was just like how to get through your day and how to be optimistic, how to be a good neighbor. So it wasn't specific to the town of Auburn at all. So the little sliver I really enjoyed was about Auburn. The rest of it I could just take or leave because that's not why I picked up this book, but happy to have read it. Okay, so then let me see here. This next page from StoryGraph is talking about fiction versus nonfiction, and I already went over that. I read 4 nonfiction and 16 fiction books. And then it also shows like page, I'm not sure if it is picking up or not, page count. And I think if I tapped on, oh, one second, I'm not sure what happened here. I hit the wrong button. I think if I tapped the graph, it would show me how many books these percentages worked out, but just on the page, this is what it was showing me. So 65%, which is a good amount, was under 300 pages. And I think that makes sense with me participating in the Wasted Weekend and focusing on the Little House on the Prairie series. So 65% was that, and then 30% is 300 to 499, and then 5% of the books were over 500 pages. And I believe that's probably The Great Hunt, the Wheel of Time series, because those are all chunky books. And then as far as format, this is not exactly true because not all of the books I read had an option. I think I could go in there and fiddle with it and add it myself, but I couldn't be bothered. But 60% were print books, and then 30% were digital, and 10% were audio. So I thought that was interesting. And then this automatically populates when you are reading a book. It will tell you what other people have categorized it as. I wish it would just pick one category per book, but it just populates like all the different genres per book. And so the majority of the books I read were historical and classic, and then there's thriller, mystery, and middle grade. Those were the main genres that I read. And then this was kind of fun. This gives me all the books I read for the month of February. So I'll just like slowly show them here. You know what? I'm looking at this book here. I completely forgot. I didn't read just 2 books for the Little House. Readathon. I also read this one right here, and I covered it on the vlog. This is Grace, Life Beyond the Little House by Diana Aubin. So yeah, those are that's that one. Oh my goodness. So these are all the other books that I ended up reading. So yeah, I had a good reading month, and I feel like I covered quite a few of these on the previous vlogs. But I wanted to like show you this little tally here. So yeah, it's fun. I'm StoryGraph is growing on me. I didn't mean this whole wrap up to be about StoryGraph, but it's interesting to compare the different reading trackers. Because in the past, I've tried spreadsheets. I've tried just keeping a log where I was writing each, like the name and the title. I've tried writing a log where I'm also giving a review and a description of the book, and that just became overwhelming because I kept getting behind. So I would read 5 books, and then I need to write my review, and so I would just like put that off and like, I'll find time for it. But then it kept getting piled up to where I was like, oh no, now I have to sit here and write pages and pages and pages to get caught up with where I'm at currently in my reading. So that didn't work out. So I feel like for me, Goodreads and StoryGraph, something like that is a good place. Although I don't exactly get to record my thoughts, but I can record them here on video. So yeah, that's how my month of February panned out. I'm pretty happy with being able to do a couple of vlogs with it. I want to try that going forward. Excuse me, especially if they're like short reading events like this. It's easier for me to think about sitting down every day and filming something. Whereas like in March, I really like all the reading events, but they're all a month long. And so it's hard to like think about, okay, I'm going to sit here every day and film a clip. That can be difficult, especially when I get very busy and stressed out with work. It's hard to think about, okay, I need to make time. And it's just going to add to my headache in a sense. It's going to feel like work, basically. And so I need to find a way of like, 'cause each month I want to at least focus on a month, not a month, or a week or two each, or maybe a weekend each month, something like that, just to focus on filming, because doing the small burst of filming with the vlogs is manageable for me and lots of fun. But anyway, I'll let you go, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, BookTube.